previous video, we took a look at several CSS3 pseudo-classes. Now, let's take a look at a few more. The next pseudo-selector is called nth of type. Before we try this out, let's first take a look at our markup. Sometimes when you're coding CSS, you'll have several elements that all have the same class. In this case, we have several divs with the class post. If we wanted to select a particular post, we could of course use unique IDs, but that's a bit cumbersome. And we might be able to use nth child, but if we had other divs mixed in with the divs of class post, that wouldn't work. We're only interested in the posts. So let's switch over to our CSS here. Using the nth of type pseudo-selector, we can select one of the divs of class post and avoid any other divs. The word type in the name nth of type is referring to the selector before it. In this case, our type is of the post class. So let's go ahead and try that out. So first, I'm going to select our content div, and inside of that, I'm going to select our posts, and I'm going to say nth of type, and we'll select the second post by putting in the number 2, and we'll change its background once again to orange so that we can see it. And when I switch back to the browser and refresh, you can see that our second post has now been selected, but not any of the other posts. Let's go ahead and try one more value just to make sure that we're clear on this. So I'll switch back, and I'm going to put in the value of 1 here and save that out. And we'll switch back to the browser and refresh. And you can see that with a value of 1, it will start with the first post up at the top here. Let's move on. The next pseudo-selector is the nth last of type selector. The relationship between the nth of type and nth of last type is the same as the pseudo-selectors we covered in the previous video, nth child and nth last child. In other words, nth last of type works exactly the same as nth of type, except the count is started from the last element in the selection. So let's go ahead and try that out. So I'll just go ahead and take our selection here and modify it a little bit by adding the word last here. And when we switch back to the browser and refresh, if we scroll down here, you can see that our post down here at the bottom is now highlighted because we're starting at the end rather than starting at the beginning. If we were to change it to something like 3, we would actually start at the first post. So when we switch back and refresh, you can see that that is indeed the case. This next selector seems like something that should have been included in CSS2, but it is in fact a CSS3 selector. In CSS2, there is a selector called first child that filters a selection of like elements down to just the first item in the selection. Last child does the exact opposite and will select the last item in a larger selection of like elements. If you already know how first child works, this one should be pretty simple to understand, but just in case, let's go ahead and try it out. So I'll switch back to our text editor, and I'm just going to delete the selection here, and we'll select our nav element, and we'll say li last child, and we'll leave the background of orange. So when we refresh the browser here, you can see that we've selected the last item in our list of navigation. We're almost done with CSS3 pseudo-selectors, but there are just a few more. In the next video, we'll finish things up.